The emergency klaxons aboard Horizon Station screamed through another sleepless night shift. James Marshall wiped grease from his hands and stared at the flickering diagnostic panel, wondering if the aging station systems would hold together for another cycle. 12 years as a civilian engineer had taught him that space stations, like old machines, had their own way of dying. The station shuddered. Not the usual tremor of failing stabilizers, but something else. Something wrong. James grabbed his toolkit and sprinted toward the maintenance shaft, his boots clanging against metal grating. Another impact rocked the station, throwing him against a wall. This wasn't a mechanical failure, they were under attack. Through the observation window, he saw them, sleek, black ships with purple energy signatures, unlike anything in the human fleet. They moved with impossible precision, cutting through Horizon's defenses like they weren't even there. James knew he should run, find shelter in the emergency bunkers. Instead, he found himself transfixed by their deadly dance. The next explosion came from inside. The maintenance shaft ahead erupted in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. James dove behind a support beam as something emerged from the smoke. No, not something, someone. A warrior in gleaming obsidian armor, nearly 7 feet tall, moved with liquid grace through the destruction. 2 smaller figures in similar armor pursued, firing weapons that left scorch marks on the walls. The tall warrior spun, a blade of pure energy igniting in their hands. In one fluid motion, they cut down their pursuers. The fallen attackers' armor dissolved, revealing reptilian features under their helmets. The victor turned toward James's hiding spot, and he felt his heart stop. The warrior's helmet retracted, revealing a face that was both alien and haunting. Iridescent scales in shades of deep blue caught the emergency lights, framing features that seemed almost feline. Most striking were the eyes, silver with hints of purple, carrying an intelligence that pierced right through him. "You," the warrior spoke, voice feminine but with an otherworldly resonance. "You will help me." James stepped out slowly, hands raised. "I don't suppose that's actually a request. I am Kraith of the Nexarian Empire. Or I was, until this night." She glanced at the dead warriors. "These assassins prove my suspicions correct. There is corruption at the heart of both our civilizations, human. A conspiracy that will destroy everything if we don't stop it." "Look," James said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I'm just a maintenance engineer. Whatever Game of Thrones you're playing up there dash." Another explosion cut him off. Kraith's head snapped toward the sound, her scaled features tensing. "They're coming. More assassins, and worse. You know this station's systems, its hidden paths? Every bolt and conduit. Then you are exactly what I need." She stepped closer, towering over him. "Help me survive this night, and I will show you truths that will change your understanding of everything. Refuse, and we both die here." James looked at the dead warriors, then at the warrior before him. Everything he knew said to run. But there was something in those alien eyes, desperation, yes, but also integrity. Whatever was happening here was bigger than one station, bigger than one night. "The maintenance tunnels," he said finally. "They run through the whole station. We can use them to dash." Plasma fire erupted from both ends of the corridor. Kraith grabbed James and pulled him through the nearest doorway, her armor absorbing hits that would have vaporized him. They tumbled into a storage room as more warriors charged past their position. "Your tunnels," Kraith said, helping him up. "Show me." James pried open a hidden panel, revealing a narrow passage. "Hope you're not claustrophobic. Save the humor for when we survive." But there was the slightest quirk to her scaled lips. As they crawled through the station's arteries, James couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just irrevocably changed. Outside, he could hear the battle raging, the station groaning under the assault. But here in the dark, crawling beside an alien warrior who had just upended his world, he felt something he hadn't expected: purpose. Why me? He whispered as they paused at a junction. Kraith's silver eyes found his in the darkness. Because in all my years of watching your kind, you humans consistently do one thing that amazes us: when faced with impossible choices, you choose to help. Even when it makes no sense. Even when it might destroy you. She checked her weapon's charge. I need that quality now more than ever. James nodded slowly, understanding that he wasn't just helping her escape. He was choosing sides in a war he didn't yet understand. Then let's make sure we live long enough for you to explain everything. They pressed on through the darkness, as above them, Horizon Station burned. The night was far from over, and this was just the beginning of a story that would reshape two civilizations, all because an alien warrior chose to trust a human engineer who couldn't walk away from someone in need. The stolen maintenance shuttle groaned as James pushed it beyond its intended limits. Behind them, Horizon Station diminished against the star-filled backdrop, occasional explosions still lighting up its skeletal frame. In the co-pilot's seat, Kraith worked on her armor systems, her scaled fingers dancing over holographic displays only she could see. We have maybe 20 minutes before they realize this shuttle's missing, James said, checking their fuel reserves. Please tell me you have a plan beyond, steal the engineer's ride. Kraith's silver eyes flickered to him. There is a trading outpost in the Vega Drift. Independent. No allegiance to either of our governments. We can acquire a proper ship there. With what money? She held up a small crystal that pulsed with inner light. Some things are worth more than credits. James focused on piloting, trying not to think about how surreal his life had become in the past few hours. So, about that explanation you promised. The one about why there were assassins trying to kill you, and why you picked me of all people to help. Kraith was silent for a long moment, her scaled features impossible to read. Finally, she spoke, her voice carrying a weight James hadn't heard before. I was First Blade of the Nexarian Special Operations Division. Our most elite unit, answering directly to the High Command. 3 cycles ago, I discovered something during a routine mission. Something that shouldn't exist. The shuttle's sensors pinged. James adjusted their course, threading them through a field of debris. What kind of something? Evidence that members of both our governments have been working together in secret. Not for peace, but for power. Her hand tightened on her deactivated energy blade. They're developing weapons that could devastate entire systems. Technology that combines the worst aspects of both our species. And they tried to kill you to keep it quiet? They tried to discredit me first. Called me unstable, paranoid. Said my time in combat had broken something in my mind. Her laugh was bitter. When that didn't work, yes, they tried to kill me. James processed this, remembering the precision with which the assassins had attacked the station. But why come to Horizon? Why risk exposure by seeking out a human? Because I needed proof that humans could be trusted. She turned to face him fully. Your kind fascinate us, James Marshall. You're younger than us, less advanced in many ways, and yet, there's something about humans that defies prediction. You don't follow logical patterns. You help strangers. You fight impossible odds. You dream bigger than your capabilities. The shuttle shuddered as they hit a gravity wave. James compensated, then said, You make us sound special. We're just trying to survive, same as anyone. No, Kraith said firmly. You're different. Tonight proved that. When I emerged from that smoke, you could have run. Should have run. Instead, you chose to help an alien warrior you had every reason to fear. Maybe I'm just bad at risk assessment. Her scaled lips quirked. Maybe you're exactly what this conspiracy fears most, someone who can't be predicted or controlled. A warning light flashed on the console. James swore under his breath. Speaking of control, we've got company. 3 ships, military grade, coming in fast. Kraith leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. Nexarian hunters. They're not here to capture. Of course not, James muttered, throwing the shuttle into a series of evasive maneuvers. Because this night wasn't exciting enough already. The first shot passed close enough to make their shields flare. Kraith's fingers flew over her holographic controls, interfacing with the shuttle's basic systems. There, she said, pointing to a dense asteroid field ahead. We might lose them in there. Might? That's reassuring. You have a better plan? James grinned despite himself. Nope. Just questioning our life choices. They dove into the asteroid field, the pursuing ships close behind. James had never pushed a maintenance shuttle like this, weaving between massive rocks, using the gravity wells to slingshot them deeper into the chaos. Kraith called out sensor readings, warning him of threats he couldn't see. A shot clipped their wing. Warning lights cascaded across the console. We can't take another hit like that, James warned. Kraith's expression turned fierce. Then we make sure they can't shoot again. She pressed something on her armor, and suddenly new displays appeared on James's console, weapon systems that definitely weren't standard on a maintenance shuttle. You hacked my shuttle? I improved it. Now fly like you mean it. James didn't need to be told twice. He spun them through a narrow gap between asteroids, then cut power for 2 seconds, letting momentum carry them. The hunters overshot, and suddenly they were behind them. Kraith's improvements proved their worth as energy pulses lanced out, catching one pursuer in its engines. The ship exploded, its debris taking out a second hunter. The third broke off, retreating into the darkness of space. That, James said, breathing hard, was terrifying and impressive. You flew well, Kraith acknowledged. For a maintenance engineer. Thanks. I think. He checked their systems, grimacing at the damage reports. We're not going to make it to your trading post in this condition. Kraith nodded. There's a repair facility in the Deneb sector. Independent, like the trading post. The owner owes me a favor. You seem to know a lot of independent operators. When you discover your own people want you dead, you learn to cultivate unusual allies. She paused, then added quietly, like humans who ask too many questions. James set their new course, considering everything that had happened. You know there's no going back from this, right? Once we expose this conspiracy, both our worlds will change forever. Yes, Kraith said, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. That's exactly what I'm counting on. As they limped toward the repair facility, James couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this night had in store. He'd started his shift as a simple engineer, and now he was a fugitive with an alien warrior, fleeing assassins and uncovering conspiracies. But strangest of all was the realization that he wouldn't have it any other way. The stars stretched out before them, full of promise and danger. Whatever came next, they would face it together, the human who couldn't walk away from a fight and the alien warrior who dared to trust him. The repair facility turned out to be a massive structure carved into an asteroid, its docking bays hidden beneath holographic shields that made it appear like just another piece of space debris. James watched in fascination as Kraith guided their damaged shuttle through an invisible entrance, the facility's true nature revealing itself only at the last moment. Your friend lives here? James asked as they landed in a private bay. Mordax isn't exactly a friend, Kraith replied, powering down the shuttle systems. But he's trustworthy, in his own way. As if on cue, a figure emerged from a doorway across the bay. James had to blink twice to make sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. Mordax was unlike any alien he'd ever seen, a towering mass of crystalline structures that seemed to float within a containment suit, light pulsing through his transparent body in complex patterns. Kraith, Mordax's voice resonated through their comms, somehow managing to sound both amused and annoyed. You always bring such interesting problems to my door. You owe me, Mordax, Kraith said, stepping out of the shuttle. Or have you forgotten about the Centauri incident? The crystalline alien's lights flickered in what might have been laughter. Ah yes, the Centauri incident. Very well, your shuttle will be repaired. His attention turned to James. But you didn't mention bringing a human. He's with me, Kraith said in a tone that brooked no argument. While Mordax's repair drones began work on their shuttle, they followed him through winding corridors to what appeared to be a private workshop. Pieces of technology from a dozen different species littered the space, some familiar to James, others completely alien. You're lucky you made it here, Mordax said, moving to a central console. The bounty on your head has tripled in the last 6 hours, Kraith. Both human and Nexarian authorities want you dead. Show me, she demanded. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing wanted notices in multiple languages. James saw his own face among them, listed as a dangerous accomplice to Kraith's supposed crimes. Well, he said dryly, guess I'm officially committed now. There's more, Mordax continued, his crystalline body pulsing with darker colors. Rumors are spreading through the independent channels. Something big is happening in the restricted zones between human and Nexarian space. Military movements that don't make sense, supply ships vanishing, strange energy signatures. Kraith's scaled features hardened. They're accelerating their plans. The weapon tests must be nearly complete. Weapon tests? Mordax's lights dimmed. What have you gotten yourself involved in? Instead of answering, Kraith pulled out the crystal she'd shown James earlier. I need to know what's on this. It's encrypted with quantum locks I can't break. Mordax took the crystal, his body's light patterns changing as he examined it. This is High Command security encryption. Where did you dash? He stopped suddenly. No. I don't want to know. The less I know, the longer I live. Can you decrypt it? Perhaps. But it will take time. He turned to a nearby workbench. Meanwhile, you should see this. New holograms appeared, showing what looked like construction facilities hidden in deep space. James stepped closer, his engineering background helping him make sense of the scale. Those are massive. But the design, it's like someone merged human and Nexarian architecture. Because they did, Kraith said grimly. This is what I discovered. Secret facilities where both our species' technologies are being combined to create something new. Something terrible. But why? James asked. Our governments hate each other. Why work together on secret weapons? Power, Mordax answered, his crystalline form pulsing. Think about it. What happens when a devastating new weapon is unleashed? Both sides blame each other, go to war, and whoever secretly controls these weapons. Controls everything, James finished, feeling sick. Exactly, Kraith said. And the conspirators get to play hero, discovering the solution to end the war they secretly started. A sudden alarm cut through their discussion. Mordax's lights flashed in patterns of distress. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Military signatures, both human and Nexarian. They found us, Kraith growled. How long until the shuttle's repaired? Not long enough. Mordax moved quickly to another console. But I didn't survive this long without contingency plans. There's a hidden hangar on the far side. I keep a few special ships there. Consider my debt paid. As if to emphasize the urgency, the facility shook with the first impacts of weapon fire. Kraith grabbed James's arm. Run. They sprinted through increasingly unstable corridors, following Mordax's transmitted directions. Behind them, they could hear the sound of boarding parties cutting through the facility's outer doors. Wait, James said as they ran. What about your crystal? The evidence? Mordax will finish the decryption, Kraith said confidently. He has ways of getting information to us. They reached the hidden hangar just as the facility's internal security alert started blaring. Inside was a sleek ship unlike anything James had seen before, black and silver, with lines that seemed to bend reality around it. Prototype stealth vessel, Kraith explained as they rushed aboard. Experimental technology. Of course it is, James muttered, sliding into the pilot's seat. Because nothing about this day has been normal. The ship's controls lit up under his touch, surprisingly intuitive despite their alien design. Kraith took the weapons station, her fingers dancing over the holographic interfaces. James, she said suddenly, her voice serious. Thank you. For staying. For helping. You didn't have to. He smiled as he fired up the engines. Yeah, I did. Someone once told me that humans have this weird habit of helping even when it doesn't make sense. Their eyes met for a moment, understanding passing between them. Then the hangar doors opened, revealing the chaos of space beyond. Multiple warships hung in the void, their weapons charging. Ready to do something crazy? James asked. Kraith's silver eyes gleamed. With you? Always. The prototype ship shot forward into the darkness, carrying with it perhaps the only two beings in the galaxy who could expose a conspiracy that threatened everything. And as they wove through enemy fire, both human and alien united in purpose, James couldn't help but think that sometimes the craziest choices were the only ones worth making. The prototype ship's stealth systems hummed silently as they drifted through the debris field of an ancient battle. 3 days had passed since their escape from Mordax's facility, and James was still getting used to the vessel's incredible capabilities. Even now, floating among the wreckage of long-dead ships, they were practically invisible to any scanning technology. Another transmission from Mordax, Kraith announced from her station. He's finished decrypting part of the crystal's data. James swiveled his chair to face her. The past few days had given him time to study his alien companion more closely. Despite her warrior's bearing, there was an elegance to her movements, a precision that spoke of both training and natural grace. Her scaled features shifted in the dim light as she analyzed the incoming data. It's worse than we thought, she said finally. The weapon they're building, it's not just a weapon. It's a way to rewrite reality itself. What do you mean? Kraith's silver eyes met his. They're attempting to merge quantum manipulation technology with experimental human AI systems. If they succeed, they could alter the fundamental laws of spacetime within target areas. That's... James tried to wrap his mind around the implications. That's impossible. 2 years ago, we thought human-Nexarian cooperation was impossible. She stood, moving to the ship's main viewport. The conspirators have been planning this for decades. Small experiments at first, testing the boundaries between our technologies. But now they're ready for something bigger. The ship's comm system chimed with an encrypted signal. Kraith tensed, then relaxed as she recognized the signature. It's Commander Vexthor. He's agreed to meet. James raised an eyebrow. You sure we can trust him? No, she admitted. But he commands the largest independent fleet in the outer systems. If anyone can help us gather proof and strike at the conspiracy, it's him. They set course for the meeting coordinates, a massive space station that operated outside both human and Nexarian jurisdiction. As they approached, James could see dozens of ships in holding patterns around the station, a mix of military vessels and armed merchants. Vexthor's coalition, Kraith explained. Refugees, deserters, independence fighters. Anyone who's ever had reason to distrust both our governments. The docking procedure was tense, with multiple security scans and identification checks. Finally, they were cleared to land in a private bay. As they descended the ship's ramp, James found himself facing an honor guard of mixed species, humans, Nexarians, and others he didn't recognize. Commander Vexthor himself waited at the end of the line. He was a Nexarian like Kraith, but older, his scales darker and marked with the scars of countless battles. His cybernetic eye glowed as he assessed them. First Blade Kraith, he rumbled. Or should I say, former First Blade? Your message was intriguing. What we have to show you goes beyond intriguing, Kraith replied. It could change everything. Vexthor's organic eye narrowed. Follow me. They were led to a secure command center, where holographic displays showed military movements across multiple star systems. James noticed how the commander's forces were positioned defensively, ready to react to threats from any direction. Before we begin, Vexthor said, turning to face them, explain to me why I shouldn't turn you both over to the authorities. The bounties on your heads could fund my fleet for a year. Kraith stepped forward, her bearing every bit as regal as the commander's. Because you know something is wrong. You've seen the patterns, the missing ships, the unexplained energy signatures, the troops' movements that make no strategic sense. Perhaps, Vexthor admitted. But speculation is not proof. James spoke up. Show him the facility data. Kraith nodded and connected their ship's computer to the command center systems. The holograms shifted, showing the secret construction yards they'd discovered. Vexthor studied them intently, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the information. These designs, he murmured. The energy requirements alone would be massive, James finished. Which explains the missing supply ships. They're not missing, they're being diverted to power these facilities. And this weapon they're building, Vexthor said, you claim it can alter reality itself? We have proof, Kraith said, producing Mordax's decoded data. But we need help to stop them. Your fleet, your connections, we need it all. The commander was silent for a long moment. What you're suggesting, it would mean war. Not just against the conspirators, but potentially against both our governments. They've already started a war, James argued. They're just waiting for the right moment to reveal it. We have a chance to stop them before they can twist it to their advantage. Vexthor's cybernetic eye focused on James. You're an engineer, yes. Not a soldier. Yet you stand here, ready to fight a war that isn't yours. It became mine the moment I learned the truth, James said firmly. Some things are worth fighting for, even if the odds seem impossible. A low chuckle emerged from the commander. Now I understand why you chose this human, Kraith. He speaks like a Nexarian warrior. He turned to his staff. Begin the preparations. If we're going to war, we do it right. Over the next hours, they planned their assault. The coalition fleet would need to be coordinated perfectly, striking multiple facilities simultaneously to prevent the conspirators from moving or destroying evidence. It would be the largest independent military operation in recent history. As they worked, James noticed something changing in the way the others treated them. Humans and Nexarians who had been suspicious at first began working together, united by a common purpose. He and Kraith became living proof that cooperation between their species wasn't just possible, it was powerful. You know, he said quietly to Kraith during a brief break, when you first said I was the only one who could help you, I thought you were crazy. She smiled, a rare expression that transformed her fierce features. And now? Now I think we're all crazy. But maybe that's exactly what we need to be to pull this off. Her hand found his shoulder, the touch light but meaningful. Tomorrow, we begin our final approach. Are you ready? James looked around at their unlikely allies, warriors and rebels from across the galaxy, all preparing to risk everything to expose the truth. Ready as I'll ever be. Though I have to ask, after this is over, assuming we survive. Yes? Think you might need a personal engineer? Someone who's good at crazy plans and asking too many questions? Kraith's silver eyes sparkled with something that might have been affection. I think that could be arranged. Above them, the coalition fleet gathered, a force born of desperation and hope. Tomorrow would bring either victory or destruction, but for now, they had this moment, human and alien, warrior and engineer, united in a cause greater than themselves. The void between stars erupted in chaos as the Coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Hundreds of ships, their crews united in purpose despite their different species, moved into attack formation. At the heart of the fleet, aboard the prototype stealth ship, James and Craith led the charge toward the largest secret facility. Multiple defensive platforms activating, James called out, his hands dancing over the controls. They weren't expecting us, but they're recovering fast. Craith's voice was steady as she coordinated the attack through their secure channels. All wings, engage as planned. Remember, we need evidence intact. Disable, don't destroy. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance. Coalition ships struck with surgical precision, targeting weapons and engines while avoiding critical systems. The facility's defenders, caught off guard by the scale of the attack, struggled to mount an effective response. Enemy reinforcements incoming, Commander Vexthor's voice crackled through the comm, both human and Nexarian military vessels. They're not broadcasting standard IFF signals. The conspirators' private forces, Craith confirmed. This is it, proof that they're working together. James guided their ship through a maze of weapon fire, using the prototype stealth systems to approach the facility undetected. Ready for the hard part? Craith checked her weapons and armor. Aren't I always? They had planned this moment carefully. While the fleet engaged the facility's external defenses, they would dock at a maintenance airlock and fight their way to the central control room. There, they could access the primary databases and broadcast the truth to every communication network in both human and Nexarian space. The docking procedure was perfect, perhaps too perfect. As they secured their ship and prepared to board, Craith suddenly tensed. It's quiet. Isn't that good? No, she said, her scaled features hardening. They're waiting for us. The airlock cycled open, and hell broke loose. Elite troops, human and Nexarian fighting side by side, opened fire from prepared positions. Craith moved like lightning, her energy blade igniting as she cut through the first wave. James, armed with weapons from Vexthor's armory, provided covering fire. They knew we were coming, he shouted over the chaos. Of course we did, a new voice echoed through the corridor. A figure stepped into view, a Nexarian admiral wearing ceremonial armor, his scales dark with age. Hello, First Blade. Or should I say, traitor. Craith's silver eyes blazed. Admiral Thexkar. I should have known you were part of this. Part of it? The admiral laughed. I created it. Decades of careful planning, bringing together the right people from both sides. Do you know how hard it was to convince humans and Nexarians to work together? But fear is a universal language. Fear of a weapon that could rewrite reality, James said, keeping his weapon trained on the admiral. Precisely. And once we demonstrate its power, both our species will beg for protection. Unity through terror, the ultimate peace. Craith's blade hummed. You've gone mad. I've gone beyond your limited understanding. Thexkar raised his hand, and more troops emerged from side corridors. Kill them both. But make it slow, they've earned that much. What happened next was a blur of motion and energy. Craith fought like a force of nature, her blade carving paths through impossibly tight spaces. James matched her rhythm, years of station maintenance giving him an intuitive understanding of the facility's layout. They fought their way through corridor after corridor, the Admiral's forces always one step behind. The control room is ahead, Craith called out. But they'll have the primary systems locked down. James grinned. Good thing you have an engineer. He pulled out a device he'd built during their planning sessions. A little gift from Mordax, quantum encryption breaker. Should get us in. They reached the control room doors just as the facility shook with a massive impact. Vexthor's voice crackled through their comms, multiple critical hits delivered. Their weapon systems are powering up, but something's wrong. The energy readings are off the scale. Inside the control room, screens showed the impossible. The quantum manipulation technology was destabilizing, creating ripples in the fabric of spacetime itself. The fools, Kraith breathed. They've lost control of it. Admiral Thexkar burst in behind them, his perfect composure finally cracking. No. We can still contain it. We can still dash. The only thing we can do, James interrupted, already working at the main console, is shut it down. All of it. Every facility, every weapon, every secret. You'll doom us all. Kraith moved to stand between the Admiral and James. No. We're saving everyone, even from themselves. James's fingers flew over the controls, using Mordax's device to break through layers of security. As he worked, he broadcast everything, the conspiracy, the weapon plans, the secret alliances, all of it, to every communication channel he could access. The facility's structure groaned as reality itself seemed to bend around them. Through the viewport, they could see ships from both sides breaking off their attack, retreating from the growing distortion. It's done, James said. But this place is about to tear itself apart. Kraith grabbed his arm. Then we leave. Now. They ran for their ship, leaving the Admiral screaming orders at troops who no longer listened. The prototype's engines were already warming up as they reached it, James's remote commands having prepared it for emergency launch. Behind them, the facility began to implode, the failed weapon taking its secrets with it. But it didn't matter anymore, the truth was out, spreading across the galaxy faster than light itself. As they rejoined the Coalition fleet, reports were already coming in. Arrests were being made in both human and Nexarian high commands. The conspiracy, exposed to the light of day, was crumbling. So, James said as they watched the chaos unfold, what happens now? Kraith's hand found his, scaled fingers intertwining with human ones. Now? Now we build something new. Something better. Together? Her silver eyes met his, and in them he saw not just a warrior, but a future. Together. The prototype ship turned toward open space, carrying its unlikely crew, the human engineer who couldn't walk away from a fight and the alien warrior who dared to trust him. Behind them, the galaxy was changing, transformed not by weapons or fear, but by the simple truth that when different species stood together, the impossible became possible. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Mordax watched the events unfold through his crystalline sensors, and smiled his strange, alien smile. Sometimes, he mused, the craziest plans were the ones that worked best. Especially when they involved humans who asked too many questions and Nexarians who weren't afraid to trust the answers.